and welcome into the Week 10 edition of the Playbook Pundits podcast here on SiouxCityJournal.com. It's Week 10 already, I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know it.
Every week I am shocked at the week.
Yes, I'm sports editor Zach James. Alongside with me is assistant sports editor Shane Lance. And coming up in this week's show, we'll go over what happened last week. We'll give you a little preview of the playoff games going on this week. We've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9... A lot. And
Mucho
playoff games in all 3 states coming up this week. And South Dakota's already in the quarterfinals.
Oh, my heavens.
And Iowa, Nebraska will be there next week. And we'll just go down the list. We'll also talk volleyball, cross country, as we've got regional finals this week on the Iowa side. So kind of like what we talked about.
Cross country?
Yeah, kind of like what we talked about in Friday's live stream. We got a lot going on this week.
Yeah, we have so much happening, and why don't we dive into last Friday's football first?
Let's do it. Go ahead.
I'm going to start with Class A, all the ones that I have written down. Let me know if I missed any of them. We had West Hancock taking on Alta, Aurelia. I mean, West Hancock, the team that I covered in 2019 when they won state, they beat Alta 43-7 to improve to 9-0 on the year. So Alta Aurelia ends their season at 5-4.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had Woodbury Central versus AHSTW 46-12 in favor of Woodbury Central. We had Dallas Clunder have 6 total touchdowns with 221 passing yards. So a big night from the quarterback.
Yes.
And then also, along with that, he had a little bit of help from Max McGill, 18 rushes for 148 yards. So they are not a one-dimensional team.
No, they're not.
They have a lot of players that can make a big difference.
And they have a really good defense, too.
Mm-hmm. They just do so much so well. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but they might be a contender for the Dome. Who knows?
They might be.
And then we had Logan Magnolia took down Galen Catholic, ended their season with a 42-12 win over the Jays. And then we had South O'Brien, led by Parker Struve, who wrote about last week.
Yes, you did.
They beat IKM Manning 21-7. Struve had 232 yards rushing and 2 TDs. Any reaction to the Class A results?
You know, I think it's West Hancock's class to lose. I think it's their tournament to lose, and they're facing South O'Brien this week. I think South O'Brien's going to have to control the ball, keep the ball away from West Hancock. But the other 2 teams in our area, too, are pretty good, too. HMS and Woodbury Central. Woodbury Central will have to stop the Southwest Valley run game this upcoming week, as the Timberwolves have over 2,100 rushing yards. So, like I said, I think it's West Hancock's tournament to lose, but HMS and Woodbury Central do certainly have something to say about that.
Absolutely. And you mentioning West Hancock, too, I mean, the past 2 years when I covered them on a regular basis, they've always been, even since 1968, I believe it was, when Coach Bob Sanger took over, they have been a run team. They run. They might pass at most 4 times a game. Sometimes the quarterback ends the year with fewer than 10 passes on the season. So they are definitely a run-first team. They pound the ball, and their defense is always locked down. So I think Parker Struve, he's going to have his work cut out for him against that defense.
He's going to have to average 3-4 yards a carry to kind of keep the ball rolling, keep that momentum rolling, keep the chains moving, and find some pay dirt at the end. But I do agree with you. I think the Wolverines are going to have to get the rush game going.
Absolutely. And then we can go over to Class 1A. Friday night we had Western Christian take down Kemper Catholic 21-7. Looks like Western Christian scored 14 of their points in the 4th quarter, so came out with a strong victory there. And I think they're playing Underwood in the 2nd round. Underwood undefeated, so coming up that Friday be a good matchup. West Sioux took down West Monona 57-7 by scoring 34 first-quarter points. At that point, you're like, okay, we just got to stay healthy at this point. I mean, let the defense do its thing and just don't let your biggest playmakers get hurt. But speaking of biggest playmakers, Dylan Wiggins, as usual, 204 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns. This is his world right now. We're just living in it.
Yep.
And then over on the other side, too, we have West Lyon. They took down GHB 42-8. And it is West Lyon's 32nd playoff appearance.
Wow, that's a lot.
That is a lot of playoff appearances.
Coach Jay Rosenboom, he's been through this rodeo a bunch of times, and I'm sure this is no different. I'm sure he's going to guide this group, maybe even to the Dome. But they have a tough test this week against Spirit Lake.
Oh, absolutely. And it has to be a plus if you're a player for a team like that. I mean, anytime making the playoffs is exciting, but when you have a guy like Coach Rosaboom that has been there, done that many times, he knows what it takes to get to the Dome. He's not scared of this stage, so it has to be a comfort for the players there. And then the final one I believe we had was Clear Lake, back in my old stomping grounds. They took down Unity Christian 41-28, and thank you, Zach Martin, for covering that game for us. Definitely was a big help.
Yes.
And then we also had Ridgeview take down Trainer 14-0. So I guess any reactions to all of those results?
I just realized I forgot 1A capsules in Sunday's paper, so I apologize for that. Just by looking at this. But in 2A, that's going to be a gauntlet of a class, and whoever wins this week and next week will certainly deserve their chance to go to the Dome in the state semifinals. So whoever comes out of it will be well-deserved. And with both Lyon County teams getting home games this week, I think that's going to bode big for both teams. Spirit Lakes had a good year. They're going to have to shut down Riley Reynolds. Central Lyon faces Clear Lake, and I know you've seen Clear Lake a time or two.
That's what I meant. I was going to mention Central Lyon. They beat Esterville Lincoln Central by 15 points, and this is good old Zach Lutmer, 218 rush yards, 4 touchdowns.
Yes.
So yeah, that's going to be a big one.
That's going to be a big one.
Clear Lake always has a pretty good defense. I mean, coming with an NFL veteran head coach who was on defense. I mean, you can't really help but get the skill points there. So yeah, it's going to be strength against strength in that game as well. Very excited to see how that turns out.
That's a great point. It is strength against strength in that one. Who's gonna be more physical? Who's gonna establish their presence on the line? Because if you can do that, you're gonna be successful. And with a team like Clear Lake, like Coach DeVries, like you said, their defense is gonna be rearing and ready to go. I mean, Coach DeVries always has his defense ready, and that's gonna be no different Friday.
Absolutely. And then going over to the smaller classes, we had a dominant outing from OABCIG against Red Oak. They beat Red Oak 56-0. OABCIG with 606 total yards of offense while holding Red Oak to 71 total yards. And we mentioned earlier in the year, Beckett DeJean making a name for himself.
Yes,
he had 364 passing yards in that game. Then his running back, Griffin Dearson, 160 rushing yards. So that offense has come to play.
Yes.
And then finally, we have 8-man. We had Kingsley Pearson beat Harris Lake Park 30-13, and Kingsley Pearson now is going to be playing undefeated Remsen St. Mary's on Friday.
And Barry Poe's going to cover that game for us on Friday night, and that's going to be I think that's going to be a really close game. I know Remsen has taken care of business at home, and I know Remsen beat Kingsley 57-26 6 weeks ago. But that was 6 weeks ago.
A lot has changed.
A lot has changed, and Kingsley Pearson has turned around their offense a little bit. So I think this will be a shootout again. But I think the Panthers will put up more points. Now, does that equate to a win in Remsen? I don't think so, but I think it'll be a much more competitive game than it was in Week 4.
Absolutely. And now that we've covered last week, why don't we dive into a little bit of this week? We mentioned a couple of the matchups, but what are some that you're really looking forward to?
The one you're covering Friday night, Algona SBL. These two teams have faced each other once before. SBL won that game, and I think SBL will go back to the film, look at what they didn't do right, and kind of correct that going into this week. I can see them putting out a big win in the round of 16 and heading into moving on to the state quarterfinals. I think the Warriors are going to put up a good show Friday night.
Yeah, and as we mentioned with SBL before, I mean, the Tyler to Tyler connection is always there. I mean, you have Tyler Schenkelberg and Tyler Smith, and you've also got Jacob Imming. The three guys that we mention every time we mention that team. It's three playmakers that can just take the ball and just explode at any point in the game. And Algona, another team that I covered a time or two in my time out at the Globe. So yeah, I'm excited to see how the Bulldogs take on the Warriors. I think it's all going to just be reliant, I think, on Tyler Smith. I mean, being the quarterback, you really just got to bring your A game. He's able to run it. He's able to pass it. So he's kind of the key to this game for me.
Yep, absolutely. And then the other Class 3A game involving an area playoff team involves Sioux Center. Well, both of them do, really. Sioux Center taking on Boyden Hull Rock Valley. Sioux Center is the number 13 seed in the Class 3A pods, if you will. And Boyd and Hole Rock Valley got the overall #1 seed, even though Harlan's right in there too. So the Nighthawks are going to have to face a tough Warriors team, but I think the Nighthawks come out on top.
Yeah, I mean, as you have in the notes here, the Nighthawks had 353 yards of offense, beat the Sioux Center, as you said, 48-16. So that means that they went into that game and they figured something out.
Yes.
They found a weakness and they exploited it. And I would imagine at Sioux Center, they probably look at the film and they see the thing that they know that Boyd and Hull did really well.
They're going to run the ball.
And they're going to run the ball and they're going to try and close whatever that weakness was. So I do think that Boyd and Hull comes out with another victory, but I think it's going to be close.
And they're going to have to try and shut down Tanner Tesla, too. And he's thrown the ball really well this year, too. And his main connection is Landon Van Kekricks. And they're going to have to try and shut that connection down on Friday night.
Absolutely. It's just at this point in the year, all the teams that are still alive, it's the top 16 for pretty much everybody, and it is just, this is where the boys become men in football. I mean, this is, to take a cheesy line from football movies, this is where legends are made, and this is my favorite time of year to be a sports writer, is the football playoffs, and I just can't wait to see it.
Well, you're covering 2 playoff games on Friday.
It's going to be a busy day for me.
Yeah, you're going to have an exciting day on Friday, as you're going to see one of the, we'll call it a South Dakota playoff game, but I know it's happening in Nebraska, but the All Nations bracket is being hosted by the South Dakota High School Athletic Association because 3 of the 4 teams are in South Dakota.
It's a very complicated system.
Yes, it is. Visuals editor Tim Hines was talking about it off camera, and we were talking how crazy that scenario was. But Winnebago is hosting Cheyenne Eagle Butte at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon. Winnebago has outscored their opponents 339-44 so far this season. Yes, that'll do. So they figured something out. We don't have stats or anything like that because they haven't entered the quick stats because Nebraska isn't there yet with Varsity Bound.
We would love them to be.
They will be next season, I believe. But knowing what you know about Winnebago, just the community, I covered them during the girls' state basketball run, and that was really fun just to see the passion that community had for that team. I think that passion will be seen on Friday as well.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a story about them early in my tenure in Sioux City.
You did.
About Winnebago and about just that league as a whole. And it is a league where there are no short trips for these
there's
teams.
not.
I believe there was one team that I talked to, I think it was down, it may have been Winnebago, but they had a 6-hour trip, just like they leave school early. They left, I think, at noon on a Friday, and they got to their location. I believe it was up by Rapid City, and they got there at 6 p.m., had to warm up for an hour, play a game at 7, get done at 10, 6-hour drive back. Like
get home at 4 in the morning, something like that.
That is not an easy thing for a team to do, and for them to be as dominant as they have been, I'm very impressed by just the stats that I've seen, and I can't wait to see them in person.
I was going to say, knowing the little that you do know about Winnebago, what are you most excited about seeing?
I'm just excited to kind of see the brand of football that they have. I mean, I know that they don't have maybe quite the resources as some of the bigger schools, so a lot of them just make do, and they kind of find whoever their top player is, and their offense might change dramatically from year to year based on just the available talent. So I'm excited to see who the playmaker is going to be, kind of the breakout star. And yeah, I'm just very excited to check out kind of a new brand of football.
Absolutely. And the other 3 South Dakota playoff games that involve area teams are all in the quarterfinal round. Alta Hudson goes to #1 Avon in Class 9B. In Class 11B, we got 2 games. Wagner coming to Elk Point to face EPJ. You've seen the Huskies before. Let's stop there for a second. What impressed you the most about the Huskies when you saw them 3 weeks ago?
Honestly, it was kind of just the passion of the crowd that was there. I mean, it's a school that they, as soon as they clinched that first playoff game, it was like they'd won state. They kind of stormed the field. All the players were very excited. They were all happy to talk to me after the game.
Yeah.
And I was just very impressed by kind of the atmosphere and the culture that the coaching staff and the players have all kind of put at that school. And it's just kind of a small school right on the side of the highway, and they're just doing big things this year, and I'm excited for them.
I should mention these 4 South Dakota games are all Thursday night. That Alta Hudson Avon game is at 6 on Thursday. Beersford taking on Aberdeen Roncalli. That's also at 6 on Thursday. The EPJ game is at 7 o'clock on Thursday, and Vermilion gets a home game in the Dakota Dome, so they'll be nice and cozy. As they'll be hosting number 6 Tri-Valley in the 11A quarterfinals on Thursday night. So 2 teams getting home games, EPJ and Vermilion, and with Vermilion getting the number 3 seed, they have a pretty decent path to have 3 home games, maybe two home games, since the state championship is in the Dakota Dome. So maybe this is a good path for the Tanagers to be the 3rd seed.
Absolutely, and at this time of year too, I mean, when you're playing outdoor football, it's a challenge because the weather really has changed in the past couple of weeks. When I covered EPJ a couple weeks ago, it was still decently warm, and then last week it just went cold. So
it was cold on Sunday. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It was 70 and sunny back home last weekend, and then you turn around, it's 45 and rainy. Seattle weather.
It is.
Yesterday. So it can turn it around, and when you do play outdoor games, to your point, you do have to make that adjustment. I'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about cross country, but football players have to make that adjustment too.
And yeah, when you have home games too at a place like the Dakota Dome, you can just kind of rest easier knowing that your offense that you're planning, your scheme is not going to be dependent on whether the football is wet or if the ground
Saw that last night's game.
Absolutely, or the ground is slippery. I mean, that's just a big load off of your shoulders for the playoffs. And yeah, I think that Vermilion, they have to be pretty optimistic about this.
We have also 5 Nebraska games involving area teams. All these games are in the round of 16, starting off with Class C1, Wayne taking on Boone Central, Crofton traveling to number 1 Norfolk Catholic in Class C2, 2 Class D1 games. All these games are Friday night, by the way. Laurel Concord Coleridge, number 12, goes to number 5 Howard Dodge. Number 9 Stanton goes to Anselmo Myrna. And in Class D2, number 14 BDS will travel to number 3 Pender. So 5 games there on the Nebraska side, and with just one of them getting a home game with Pender.
Yeah, I mean, this, like we've mentioned, this is the time of year where we're just kind of swamped with everything. And when you have Nebraska and South Dakota and Iowa going, I mean, it's going to be a really fun Friday night and Thursday night, I guess, of football. So a lot of stuff to look forward to, no matter where you are in Siouxland.
On top of that, we got regional volleyball this week. We have 2 regional finals coming up on Tuesday night. One of them being Sioux Center taking on Sergeant Bluff Luton. That game is actually in Lemoyne. It's not in Sergeant Bluff this week. It is actually in Lemoyne tomorrow night. 7 o'clock first serve between the 2 Warriors teams, between the Warriors and the Warriors. And then Bishop Heelan will have to travel down to Council Bluffs to face Lewis Central, who knocked off top seed in that region, Glenwood. So both teams have double-digit losses, and that's a very realistic shot for the Crusaders to make it to state next week in Cedar Rapids.
Absolutely. I mean, I wrote down the last couple of days all of the volleyball games I could find that we have to look forward to. Like you mentioned, we have MMCRU at Galen Catholic, Akron Westfield at Westwood, Central Lyon at Boyden Hull, Ridgeview versus East Sac County, Hinton at Western Christian, Garrigan at Newell Fonda.
Yeah, those are all tonight, too.
Those are all tonight, all regional semifinals. And then tomorrow, like you mentioned, we have Sergeant Bluff Luton versus Sioux Center, Sheldon versus Forest City, another team I used to cover, Unity Christian versus Clarion Goldfield Dows, Bishop Heelan at Lewis Central. So they have a bit of a hike to get down there, and then East at Dowling Catholic, and those are all regional finals.
And that's a hike, too, for East to go to Dowling. But East has beaten a Dowling team 2 years ago to get to the Grove State basketball tournament. Maybe they can use some of that same mojo to kind of pull up an upset in volleyball. And that's probably going to be the regional final in basketball, too, if the teams get paired up that way. I do think East girls will be good enough to get a regional final. But just getting back to the volleyball side of things, what matches over the next 2 nights catch your eye?
Well, I think the one that I'm looking forward to the most has to be Sergeant Bluff Luton versus Sioux Center. Just kind of a power versus power team at that point, and this is for kind of all the marbles at this point.
All the marbles.
This is the. I mean, when you get to state too, it's exciting, and when they win, all the players are obviously very happy. But when like a home team wins a regional final game to go to state, that's the most excited that I see fans and players, because they just got to do it in front of their parents, in front of just casual fans, in front of their student section. Because when you go to state, it's a bit of a hike to get over to Cedar Rapids.
It is.
So yeah, I'm just very excited to see the home atmosphere the excitement, and this is my favorite time of year for volleyball as well. It's just those regional final games.
Is it your favorite time of the year for cross country too?
It is, in fact.
Good answer, because that's what we got going on Friday. It's the Class 4A and 3A cross country meet. It's on Friday in Fort Dodge. We're doing the same format as they did last year. 4A and 3A on Friday, 2A and 1A on Saturday. I believe action gets going both days at around 10:30. But the two biggest storylines going for cross country is obviously the North boys going for their second straight state championship. Excuse me. They haven't lost a meet since the Heartland Classic, I think. So they've been on a roll here, and they've been doing it with different runners too. It's not just Will Lohr leading as a senior. It's also Gabe Natch. It's also Natnell Kifley, Yamani Kifley. Any of those four guys can break the tape on Friday. And I think it does take one of those four guys to break the tape on Friday to take the state championship. I think all five scorers need to be in the top 15, which I think it's a doable thing. They've beaten Dowling so far this year. They've beaten them 3 times. I think they've beaten Ankeny a couple of times. So they've seen good competition. It's not just all Northwest Iowa teams they've beaten up on. They've beaten up on some good Central Iowa teams too.
Was it the state qualifying meet? Did they have all 5 of their guys finish in the top 15?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they just outscored the second place opponent by just so many points.
At least 40.
It was crazy. I mean, just talking to them and reading up on your story, since you're kind of the cross country dude of this pair.
Yes.
They're just such a dominant team. It's kind of unreal, just the confidence that they have too. I mean, talking to their head coach, I asked him, like, do you think that you can be this dominant at state? And he paused for about a half second. You never know.
You never know. No, you never know, because you can get food poisoning at Fort Dodge. The weather can be a factor. It's not going to be sunny and 65 on Friday morning.
It's never nice at the state.
No, it's not. It will be sunny, though. That will be nice. There may be a wind factor. There may be a cold factor, so the runners have to deal with that. Running with layers, running with a wall. So there are some factors that you have to take into account, and that does affect your strategy a little bit. But I think with what North has been able to do this year, and even towards the end of last year too, it's a quiet confidence. It's not this cocky, hey, we're number 1 in the state. That group is a small-knit group. They know how good they are within themselves. They don't boast it, but they'd like to show what they can do on the course. And that's what they'll do on Friday. I think they do win again on Friday. And going up against an Ankeny, Dowling Catholic, Ankeny Centennial, Pleasant Valley, they're a household name with those programs who have established good programs over the last 5 to 10 years. And maybe North isn't as dominant as they will be next year, but I do know they have some JV runners and some young runners who are going to be very, very good down the road. But maybe this is where North officially gets on the map with the win, and that would mean the world to them.
Absolutely.
Honestly.
Yeah, and to your point, too, about how anything can kind of happen. I mean, last year, when I was there for that, I was covering a runner with St. Ansgar, who will also be there this year in Class 1A, Riley Witt, who was one of the most dominant runners I've ever seen. And going into it, I was pretty certain he was going to place pretty high. He struggled 2 years ago at his first state meet. He was coming in strong, and then he struggled again, just got dehydrated in the middle of the race and really was staggering toward the finish line. And that can happen even with runners from places like North. I mean, you have to really go in, your body has to be peaking at the right time, and you need to make sure that you're hydrated and well fed, because even if you are a guy like Will Lohr, you still have to really be on top of it and really bring your A game.
And to your point, experience is key too, and I think a runner like Carlos Rodriguez of SBL, that's going to serve him well coming up on Friday. And this is his 3rd meet, I believe, and he's learned from the last 2 meets. He's learned what it takes to be a good runner this year. He's realized that, and I think he's going to have a good race on Friday too in the 3A boys race. Plus, he has a teammate with Hayden Gamble going with him too, and I think that will work wonders for him too. It's not just him going, it's also Hayden Gamble going with him too. Speaking of other Metro runners, Sioux City East is sending 2 runners, Ryan Campbell and Kaya Downs. Campbell will probably finish I hope Campbell finishes in the top 55. I think Kaya finishes in the top 10. can she compete for a state title? There's a lot of good competition, especially on the eastern side of the state with Grace Bolin of PV, Allie Mackey of Ankeny. I think will have a good finish too. Keely Lightson of Hempstead, last year's state champion. So I think Kaya's got her work cut out for her, but the point I made in Friday's edition, the point I'm going to make it coming up in this week too. She wasn't seated very high in the 800 and the 3200 in track back in the spring. Got third both times.
Yeah, I mean, she seems to thrive on kind of, if not being disrespected, if being kind of people just not thinking that she can accomplish as much as she can. I mean, but right now, I would imagine her confidence is pretty high because she just committed to Mizzou. She's got that big weight off of her shoulders there. So she really can just run free at this point, and she knows what she is. She knows that she's a dominant runner.
That's a great call, too. She knows what she is.
Yeah, if other people, just outsiders, like doing the rankings and everything, they see that she's strong, but maybe they don't see whatever it is that Kaya really has because she just seems to have the it factor.
And she's in those two races too, and I get track races and cross country races are two somewhat different things, but in those two track races, especially in a monsoon, especially in I think it was a 16 or something like that, she made an unbelievable kick. And that's what she's going to do Friday. She may not be leading with a mile to go, half mile to go, but she's going to make that kick. She knows when to kick. She's going to make that kick. And that might be the difference for against all these other runners as well. Other Metro runners include Heelan sending 2, Brooklyn Stanley, Delaney Salisbury. West, I don't think is sending anybody. North is also sending Elizabeth Jordan along with the boys team. And South Dakota, on the South Dakota side, they had their state meet over the weekend. South Sioux had their state meet. Masudi Ahirso won the meet on Friday. That's a big thing for him. Like you said, confidence is a big thing, experience is a big thing, and he knows what he is. All three of those things fed into a big title for Masudi on Friday.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, that was the second state title in South Sioux history. So that is, for a kid like that, that is just an epic accomplishment. I mean, just what a thrill for the school, what a thrill for him. I mean, just being as fast as he is, he just seemed to dominate. How much did he win? I remember it was a good amount.
It's a good amount. I don't remember off the top of my head. It was more than 30 seconds, though, if I remember correctly.
Which is crazy when you're talking about the top runners in the state to come in 30 seconds ahead.
And you, of course, the Necker, who won by over a minute from Huntington. He's only a junior, and he's probably going to four-peat next year. And it was really nice to see him win his third title, too. So we have some good... And Jordan Owens winning for Crofton. Crofton winning the team title as well. We have some good cross-country in this area.
It's great to see all just the amazing athletes. Like I mentioned, at this time of year, this is where legends are made. And this is coming from a guy that gets out of breath from standing out of his chair too quickly. So I am impressed. I love writing about just the kids and the athletes that we have, and this is what makes our job so fun.
And plus, from a college perspective, if we want to stay on the cross-country theme for a second, Dort ran a perfect meet on Saturday. That's hard to do.
Very impressive.
That's hard to do, especially at the collegiate level. Dort took the first 7 spots. They didn't just take the first 5 spots. They took the first 7 spots, led by Jacob Vanderplatz. So I want to do a story on those Dort men because I haven't gotten around to that because we've got so much going on. But those defenders did a really nice job on Saturday.
Yeah, you can't have a more impressive meet than that. I read that in our roundup yesterday morning and was just kind of stunned. Like you never really hear about. Like you mentioned at the collegiate level, having a perfect meet.
North's come close twice this season. It's just hard to do.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult to do, and good for Dort. I mean, they had another good day in football too. They almost beat Morningside. So just a great weekend for the defenders.
And they've got a big game this week coming up against Northwestern too.
It doesn't get any easier when you go from Morningside to Northwestern.
No, it does not.
It's just running the gauntlet.
Especially with Tyson Koima back too.
Oh yeah, he's back. He's throwing touchdowns. Just very exciting time.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time. Very exciting next 3 weeks over cross country, volleyball, football. We've got it all for you. Hockey, basketball starting up on the collegiate side. So a lot going on here in the Siouxland, and we appreciate you following us for all that coverage here at SiouxCityJournal.com. There will be no Friday live stream because I'll be in Fort Dodge. You'll be in Winnebago, so there will be no 5 o'clock live stream. So make sure to take that off your calendar. But we will have a coaches show this week, so be on the lookout for that. at SiouxCityJournal.com or wherever you find your podcasts. Anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
Well, I'll take like a minute. I covered 2 hockey games. The Sioux City Musketeers this week, really enjoyed both of them.
Yep.
Friday night, they retired the jersey number 35 of Matisse Kivlenix, former goalie, also played for the Blue Jackets, who died tragically this past summer. So yeah, the number is now hanging up in the rafters. So when you go to Tyson Event Center, you can see that. Saturday night, they had Coaches versus Cancer Night, and Charlie Shane, who I've already written about this year, hat trick to propel the team into first place. So very impressive and fun weekend of covering hockey.
And they were at home again on Saturday night, too.
They are. They've got a lot of home games. So
Yep.
yeah, if you're a hockey fan, go check them out. Go watch Charlie Shane in action.
Yes.
He is really impressive to
They
see.
have a home this week at Lincoln on Friday, at home against the Stars on Saturday, and they'll also have a trick-or-treating thing for the kids after the game on Saturday as well. So if you have little kids, you want a little more extra candy before you go trick-or-treating on Sunday, head to the Tyson Event Center and get some extra candy for your little ones on Saturday. And we may even get a couple candy boys.
We might. Who knows?
Who knows? All right. For Assistant Sports Editor Shane Lance, I'm Sports Editor Zach James. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for reading. We'll talk to you next week on Monday.
Toodles.